American politics entering Canada, that is the topic of tonight's byline, because we now have robo-complaints over robocalls. Have you seen this anywhere else? Has this led off the CBC or CTV evening newscast? Has this been front page of the Star, the Globe, or your local paper? Those tens of thousands of complaints to Elections Canada and, well, others are being driven by a pair of online advocacy groups with ties to the far left in Canada, the Obama campaign in the U.S., and a host of American left-wing groups. These groups, like the esteemed New Democrat MP Pat Martin, are upset over what's happening to Canada's democracy. Why, when you look at what is happening, it's like we're becoming, heaven forbid, Yankees.
Cheating using American-style dirty tricks. American-style dirty tricks.
American-style dirty tricks.
An American-style dirty trick?
These American-style dirty tricks.
American-style dirty tricks.
I hate to use it, but two American-style dirty tricks.
Oh, everyone's worried about American-style dirty tricks coming to Canada. Well, we can't have that now, can we? Those nasty Republicans will soon be running the place, likely smoking cigars, putting their feet up on the furniture while they do it. There are now calls for a public inquiry into this robocall controversy and claims that it has thrown the election out of bounds. Now, the election results aren't the real ones, no, because of this. Well, how much attention has been paid to who's orchestrating the campaign for the public inquiry and overturning the election results? Not many, and certainly not the consensus media. Let me explain something to you here. This robocall controversy is less than meets the eye. There's far more smoke than fire. When I pointed this out before, the Twitter twerps that hate me and Sun News simply for existing, well, they've just complained, Lilley doesn't care about election fraud. Really? Let me say it again. If there is evidence of illegal activity, prosecute those responsible, put them in jail, even if it's the Prime Minister. But something really stinks about this idea that tens of thousands of Canadians spontaneously contacted Elections Canada 9 months after the election because they suddenly remembered getting a phone call. Simply put, this hasn't happened. What has happened is that the left has imported what they claim they hate.
American-style dirty tricks.
That's right, Pat, American-style dirty tricks from your side to try and force a public inquiry and push for by-elections in key ridings so that the results of the election can be overturned. You think I'm nuts if I say this, but let's look at the website of this group, leadnow.ca. This group has an entire campaign to push people to contact Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the other party leaders, RCMP Commissioner Bob Paulson, and William Corbett, the Commissioner of Canada Elections. He's the lead investigator for any wrongdoing in the election. They have a full template set up right there to email all those guys at once, and they are bragging about how many people they've put in touch with Elections Canada. Avaz.org is doing the exact same thing. Avaz is out of New York City. This is the group that tried to get Sun News shut down before we even launched. These are high-level Americans like John Podesta with deep ties to the left wing of the Democratic Party, and they're now trying to overturn Canadian democracy. What about this Lead Now group? They're Canadian, right? They're based in Canada? Well, kinda. They have a couple of Canadians involved, but they've copied the Avaz model right down to having American political activists on their board. Check out Ben Branzel. He's a leading international practitioner, trainer, and writing in the field of progressive online organizing. That's how his Huffington Post bio starts. He also lists at Lead Now that he's the former director of new media for Barack Obama and currently the advocacy director for MoveOn.org. Then there's Alnur Lada, the director of strategy at Purpose.com. That's a New York City-based company that creates 21st century movements. And then there's Ross McGregor, the director of Tides Canada Foundation, a Canadian branch plant of the American Tides Foundation, which acts as a clearinghouse. Some might call it a slush fund for left-wing causes. Yes, there are a few Canadians on the board of Lead Now, such as Ian Capstick, Robin Spears, two capable communicators with strong ties to the NDP. There's also G.D. Rabick and Jim Stanford from the Canadian Auto Workers. This is not a grassroots movement of ordinary Canadians. This is an orchestrated campaign. Not even one designed to deal with legitimate complaints, but one aimed at making as much noise as possible to push for that public inquiry to overturn Canada's democracy. Let me ask you again, have you heard this anywhere else? Not really. You've heard how the Conservatives are behind the robocalls. You've heard tons of unfounded allegations. It's yet another example of why you can't trust the consensus media. And that's the byline. Joining me now for his take on the robocall controversy is Jamie Biggar. He is the co-founder of Lead Now. Jamie, thanks for joining us today. Your organization, you've told me, you started before the last election.
That's correct.
Is it a partisan organization in your view? Because I look at it and it seems fairly partisan to me.
I wouldn't call it partisan. I'd say that I describe us as cross-partisan. There's a range of people involved who might have different political affiliations. It is true that we've had a series of disagreements with the direction that this current federal conservative government is taking us in. But I wouldn't say that we're partisan. We'd be happy to support this government on some issues of common ground if we could find that. We just haven't had much luck yet on that.
But for the most part, it is a left-leaning organization. You look at who's on your board of advisors, and we'll get more on that in a moment. But a news release you put out just about 2 weeks ago calling for 10,000 people to join the NDP to vote in favor of the NDP, the Liberals and the Greens working together to defeat the Harper government.
Actually, we called for, we had about 10,000 people join the NDP, Liberals or Greens, not just the NDP, calling for cooperation to defeat this current government and then institute electoral reform. And the reason for that is that we believe strongly in electoral reform as an issue. The NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals all have positive positions on electoral reform, while the moment the Federal Conservative Party doesn't. So in order to get electoral reform, we believe it's necessary to defeat this current government on that issue.
You've got a number of people connected to the NDP on your board of advisors. You've also got a number of people connected to the Democratic Party in the U.S. or connected to the left-wing politics in the U.S. People like Brent Brandsnell, who was Obama's new media coordinator. He's currently with MoveOn.org. Alnur Lada with Purpose.com. And here in Canada, Ross McGregor, who's with Tides Canada, which is a foundation that's kind of a clearinghouse for funding left-wing organizations, left-wing causes. Was this a plant? Was Lead Now kind of a plant? And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's like organizations plant branches all the time. From Avaz, did you guys copy from Avaz? Did they help you set up?
No, Avaz has not helped us set up in any way. Ben Branzel actually currently is not working with MoveOn. Sorry, excuse me, I have something in my eye. But no, we weren't. We weren't helped.
Do you have ties? Do you have ties to these American groups? Because we keep hearing that the robocalls were American-style dirty tricks politics coming to Canada, and to me, this looks like American politics coming to Canada when you've got Avaz and. They're leading their own campaign to get people to contact Elections Canada. And then there's your campaign. And your campaign, your organization, is backed by some people with some pretty serious ties to the Democrats and groups like MoveOn. Is this American politics coming to Canada through Lead Now?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, the main focus in the American-style politics that we have an issue with that appear to be rearing their head in this election is systematic voter suppression efforts through misleading robocalls. That's what we're concerned about that may have occurred in the 2011 federal election. Our organization, which uses online campaigning to build a large community of people who are working together on a range of issues, is a style of organization that exists in the United Kingdom, it exists in Australia, it exists really right around the world. There's a new organization that's just started up in India that uses this approach to use technology to enable citizens to speak together to government. There's nothing exclusively American about that approach to politics. We're just using technology.
Well, other than people like Alnur and Ben and others with those ties, you've also got strong NDP ties in Ian Capstick, Robin Spears, Jim Stanford, Judy Rebick. So are you connected that way to the New Democrats here?
We don't have any kind of official relationship to any of the political parties. In fact, that cooperation campaign that you referenced earlier really upset a lot of people in the political parties. In particular, it upset people in the NDP who in many cases, didn't appreciate that cooperate message. So at the moment, we've actually been doing work that in many ways has been upsetting folks in many of the established political parties. And that's because we're calling for a new approach to politics that focuses on cooperation across party lines and that calls for a more democratic approach to government. That in some ways is going to challenge party structures.
You're saying more democratic, and we can always be more democratic, but right now you're looking to overturn results of the last election based on hearsay, a lot of allegations, and we've got what appears to be solid evidence in Guelph, but not solid evidence elsewhere.
We agree with you about the solid evidence in Guelph. What we're calling for, though, is a public inquiry into what appears to be a systematic effort. We don't know who was behind that effort. There are many questions that are unresolved at this point. But we have seen, whether it was just last week when call center staffers were coming forward to say that they had been given scripts telling them to call voters, non-conservative voters, and mislead them. We believe that we can see evidence of a systematic effort in the last election, and what we're calling for right now is a public inquiry into what occurred in the 2011 election. I agree that we don't yet know all the facts, and that's exactly why our community has started this petition, is to make sure that we have a full and independent inquiry into it.
Before we're out of time, I have to ask you this. Was your organization a big fan of Bill C-30, that's the internet snooping bill, or were you opposed to that?
Our organization actually didn't have a position on that. We were focused on Bill C-10, which was the omnibus crime bill.
Okay, just the reason that I asked is because Elections Canada getting involved, they can without, or Elections Canada getting the CRTC involved, they can without warrant seize phone records straight across the country. And if you're opposed to Bill C-30, I was going to ask you about that, but if you don't have a position, maybe you don't. Jamie, thanks so much for coming in today.
Okay, thank you.